Is it Saturday yet? Lions and Panthers coming up this weekend. Big advantage for Detroit offensively, and Mike Pritchard is going to join us today, the VSIN lead NFL analyst and former NFL wide receiver, on a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's going on, everybody? What's good? Matt Dery with you. It's a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, a Wednesday, December 21st, into Thursday, December 22nd. Thanks for listening, making us your first listen each and every day right here on Locked On Lions. And we are proudly today brought to you by our friends at Ultimate Football GM. Ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise? Then this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On in all caps in the game. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter, the Matt Dery Facebook fan page. And what's up, everybody watching on the Locked On Lions YouTube channel? We are over 3,000 subscribers watching. The views have been through the roof. This team is playing great football. Thanks to the fans, and thanks for everybody for checking us out each and every day. Coming up on the show, a couple of offensive numbers for you that are a big advantage for Detroit, as they still remain about 2.5 3-point favorites for Saturday's showdown in Charlotte. Temperature is supposed to be like the lowest they've been in the city of Charlotte in December in years, like 29, 30 degrees with this giant snow Mageddon or whatever we're getting around here. It's affecting everybody. So that's apparently taking place down in Charlotte as well. Not the snow, but just the cold temperatures. We'll get into that. And again, Mike Pritchard going to join us from VSIN. Mike, of course, played many years in the NFL as a wide receiver for the Falcons, the Broncos, and the Seahawks, Colorado Buffalo as well. And he's the lead NFL analyst for VSIN, the Vegas Sports and Information Network. So we're going to talk to Mike coming up momentarily about the Lions. Team getting ready for the game. Obviously, a short week with the Saturday game, 1 o'clock on Fox. Our buddy Chris Myers will be on the call with Robert Smith. But I looked this up today. The Lions offensively are fourth in the league in yards per game. They put up about 375 yards per game with this offense. It's been prolific. It's been solid. They haven't made any mistakes lately. Jared Goff's been good. The running backs, the receivers, everything. They're going to be facing Carolina on Saturday. The Panthers, led by Sam Darnold and company, are 30th in the league, third worst in the league, with 288 yards per game, nearly 100 yards less than the Lions average each Sunday. Think about that for a second. Maybe you're concerned about this game. Maybe you're thinking, is the streak going to end at 3 and the road winning streak and all these things. The Lions average about 100 yards a game more than Carolina. And then saw this today. The Lions are number 1 in the league in least amount of 3 and outs, like at 22%. Who is number 1 in the league with the most 3 and outs at 41%? This according to Warren Sharp from Sharp Football. The Panthers. They've had the most 3 and outs of any team in the league at 41%. That's pathetic. The Lions got to win this football game Sunday. I know it's a trap game and 2 division games coming up and coming home for the Bears. And man, I've had so many people hit me up about New Year's Day tickets for the Chicago game, and Hall of Fields is coming in. But man, if the Lions just can put up some points and can sustain some drives, they're going to win. Carolina stinks. They're 5-9. Sam Darnold, this guy couldn't even beat out Baker Mayfield. PJ Walker was starting games early in the year. I know the Lions went down to Carolina a few years ago, and P.J. Walker lit him up. But I really like Detroit this weekend. And we're going to talk to Julian Council about it tomorrow on the Thursday crossover. Let's talk to Mike Pritchard coming up next. But first, let's talk about our friends at Ultimate Football GM. Yes, sir. I'm excited to tell you about it. Our newest partner and sponsor, the mobile game, Ultimate Football GM. where if you've dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise, you can do it because the dream can come true. And this game is definitely for you. Manage every strategic aspect of your team through the season and lead it to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. It is awesome. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. All right, it's fun. Going up against Peter Bukowski and my guy Luke Braun with the Locked On Vikings. It's kind of cool. All the other hosts are involved, and it's a lot of fun. You guys got to do the same with your friends. Locked On Lions listeners are going to get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps to make sure you got to check it out today. Download the game. You visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty. Do that today. And Locked On Lions today brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find an episode from the league available as a bonus episode on Locked On NFL. Narrated by Super Bowl champ and legendary smack talker Richard Sherman and sports broadcaster and rising star Taylor Rooks. The League is an 8-part docuseries about the most bizarre, inspirational, and unlikely stories connected to America's favorite sport. We know what that is, pro football. You won't want to miss these episodes and untold stories spanning from the 40s through the present. Head over to Locked On NFL for a bonus episode of The League right now, or catch the full series wherever you get your podcasts. The League, available now. Audible, get in the game. Lions are on a roll right now, playing great football. Let's head out to Vegas right now. VSIN NFL analyst and former NFL wide receiver Mike Pritchard, the pride of Colorado, going to join us for a little bit here to talk Detroit Lions. Pritch, great to see you.
Matt, great to be with you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. First of all, you got to be excited about your Colorado Buffaloes. We see the jersey behind you. Dion coming to town. This has got to be nuts.
Yeah, it is nuts. I actually have my Atlanta Falcons jersey tied in the shot here with my Colorado jersey. So connecting the dots right there. But no, it's exciting news. Dion, Coach Prime, is obviously transformative individual, right? I mean, he's an icon, and he commands attention. And certainly he's getting attention for the program and certainly for his coaching staff and certainly other players. Some of the top players in the country are entertaining now going to Colorado, which is exciting.
I forgot to ask. So did you play with him in Atlanta? Were you guys teammates?
Yeah, I got drafted in 91. I believe he got drafted in 89 in Atlanta. So we overlapped about 3 years. I played with Coach Prime for 3 years out there in Atlanta.
Wow. So did you have any hand in helping him make the call here? And did he want to hear about Boulder?
No. I mean, it was stealth mode from our AD because I guess you have to be that way these days because if the word gets out, then all of a sudden a lot of other people might come calling. I know Dion had multiple offers, and for him to select the University of Colorado, I mean, I could not be more excited for my alma mater.
No question about it. All right, excitement here in Detroit. 1-6 start.
Yes.
They've won 6-1. They've gone 6-1 since. What's your take, and what do you make of these 7-7 Red Hot Lions?
Well, it's a get better league, Matt, and I noticed the Lions getting better during the course of the year. I mean, I think that at some point you have to be ready for that type of change. And certainly Coach Campbell, when you had the hard knock situation at the beginning of the year, a lot of attention on the franchise and a lot of attention on those players. And, it carried over. I mean, I think they played well in the beginning of the year, didn't get the wins like they wanted to, obviously, right? But they were playing well and playing hard, which was more important, I think. So if you correct some things, figure out some things along the way, and as coaches collectively get better, as players collectively get better, and then you have the buy-in, this is the result. It's been an interesting ride, and it's been an interesting watch, too, to watch the Detroit Lions evolve this year. And they're one of the hottest team, if not the hottest team in the league right now.
It's interesting because they're kind of doing it the old-fashioned way, right? Nowadays, it's a passing league, and we're seeing guys like Mahomes that can do it all, Josh Allen, and here's Jared Goff, kind of a dink and dunk offense, stuff in the trenches, yet it's working right now. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think the Lions were built correctly. I mean, you think about the line of scrimmage offensively, and then the line of scrimmage defensively. So that gives you a chance, and then you extrapolate outside of that. What I had witnessed with the Lions a few weeks ago was just their attention to the running game, and how they really wanted to feature that, and how they really wanted to implement a toughness aspect to that offense, right? I mean, Jared Goff. I mean, we know he's explosive as a passer, and we know he could be prolific at times too. But that also took the pressure off of everybody else, especially if you can have a sound running game and simplify the game that way, and just be tough. Like we've seen that across the league this year. A lot of teams turning back the clock to the late 90s, my era, really, in terms of running the football and being tough and simplifying things out there. And they needed to do that because we've seen so many teams go to primarily nickel defenses, and you got all these defensive backs to prevent the passing game. So I think the advantages were in the running game, and the Detroit Lions were one of the first teams to discover that this year. So that attention to detail, and then obviously the explosiveness on the outside. Amon-Ra St. Brown is incredible. Shark has been incredible. And now you just added Jameson Williams, which I've been waiting to see this guy play all year long. So it's very exciting out there in Detroit.
A couple of things on what you just said I want to piggyback. Let's start with Jameson Williams. They haven't really used him. I mean,
Right.
to be quite honest, they haven't really needed to. They've got some depth there, Raymond and Reynolds and others. But do you think that's a case where, like, they wait till week 18 in Green Bay and all of a sudden he's on a jet sweep? Or is that how the coaches think? Or you think they're thinking one kind of game at a time with a kid like that?
I've been really interested in their game plans. I mean, they're very creative, even with Brock Wright, catching a
Yeah.
winning touchdown, right? I mean, very creative with the play calling, which keeps things interesting and fresh for the players, too. I mean, I think the team, if you look at how they're constructed, there's enough veterans on that team, but then also the youthful nature of that team, too, is paramount. So I think Jameson Williams will be involved, and I don't know how they're going to use him. I know he had the deep pass for a touchdown, and just that deep threat on the field, even if it's a decoy at times. I mean, that just opens up so many other things too. I mean, including the running game. Imagine now defensively, when you do have Williams out there catching more passes or making more plays, you're going to have more attention on him, and so one less body in the box, if you will, and that will help out offensively as well.
Former NFL wide receiver Mike Pritchard, now with the VSIN lead NFL analyst, joining us here on Locked On Lions on a Wednesday edition. Lions will be in Carolina on Sunday. Another thing you mentioned was the trenches. This is kind of an old school offensive line, and you've been on some teams in the league, Atlanta, Denver, and Seattle, where you had to kind of win up front. How key is that? Just if you got a good offensive line, go back to last year's Rams Super Bowl team, you're going to probably be okay.
Yeah, you will be. You will be. Now, I mean, a lot of people look at the offensive line. Okay, are they going to protect the quarterback? And I mean, that's one thing. That's one aspect of an offense. And providing time for prolific passer, like we just talked about with golf, is essential. But I think in today's game and the way that we've seen the league unfold and the parity that is right there in front of us, you have to be tough. You have to be physical, but you have to be mentally ready for that. And in other words, Matt, when you watch some games, there's business decisions being made out there, right? Some teams don't want to mix it up. Some teams don't want that type of funk that the Lions are bringing from a physical nature. And the fact that the coaching staff out there in Detroit realize that and recognize that, again, that just simplifies the game and makes it fun, right? I mean, the offensive lineman, if you're a big guy, physical guy, you want to hit somebody. You don't want to get hit. You don't want to catch these edge rushers. And so I think it's been a great reward. And look at the running backs. I mean, it's incredible the amount of talent that Detroit has right now.
Mike Pritchard with me. You mentioned culture and kind of physicality, and that's the way Dan Campbell talked. And I know you watched Hard Knocks. You referenced it before. But how much is it? How much? Put a percentage on it. I mean, how important is it to have that culture, or is it just the Lions' talent is better than maybe it was a year ago, 2 years ago?
Well, they are more talented. I mean, there's no question about that. I think it's very important. I think it's vital, actually. I mean, this game it used to be about 60% mental, but now I'm going to say it's about 70% mental because, in a week of practice, you're not hitting two-a-days or no longer existing in the National Football League, at least the way that I know and I'm familiar with it. So you have to be mentally plugged in, and you have to have the willingness to be physical. Like you watch college football, they don't even huddle most of the time, and it's more of a finesse type of game, the perimeter type of game, and I think if you can establish the running game in the National Football League with narrow hash marks, you have to have a physical presence. But more importantly, you have to have the willingness to do that. And so culture is everything. Coach Campbell preaching that and living that, and certainly the fellas buying into that. But to go out there week in and week out, that is mental preparation and the willingness to put that helmet on a little tighter and put some air in it and get after it.
More with Mike Pritchard coming up next. I want to ask about Sunday's game with Carolina. We'll look at the number as well. But first, we want to tell you about our friends at Total Wine and More. This holiday, find what you love at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find a new favorite single barrel bourbon or the perfect gifts for everyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide, all with the confidence knowing you found something special for that lowest price. Love what you find only at Total Wine and More, curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly. Be 21. Former NFL wide receiver Mike Pritchard with us, and now part of the VSIN lineup there. NFL analyst for VSIN. Lions are, by the way, Pritch 3-point favorites against Carolina on Saturday. It's supposed to be cold. A road favorite for the Lions. What do you think as you look at that?
Yeah, how about that? It's going to be cold in Carolina, right? I mean,
I
and
know.
you're in Detroit, and it's like, okay, but you got the indoor facility, which is awesome. But I don't know if the elements are going to be that heavily weighted. I mean, they're going to be there, but you got to block it out, right? I mean, it's December football. I think you kind of expect that if you're on Detroit, because you certainly have to, games in Chicago and games in Lambeau all the time. So, the line is interesting because this is the first time all year that the Lions have been a favorite on the road. If you go back years, I mean, it's been a few games or so in which Coach Campbell couldn't establish a win on the road, and then certainly this year that has happened. So there's respect for the Lions in the way that they have been playing, and certainly the competitive nature that they win with. And I think on the road, being a favorite for the first time has some bettors skeptical. But I'm not one of those bettors. I think the Lions should be favored, and I think it's appropriate. And the way that they're playing, I know there's a feel-good nature in that locker room right now too for this football team. So I actually like the Lions in this matchup against the Panthers. The Panthers, to me, had a great opportunity to seize the moment last week against the Steelers at home, right?
Yeah.
And then they couldn't get it done. I mean, and actually, the Steelers beat the Panthers at their own game, which if that happens to you at home, I think you tend to question what's going on and certainly doubt as well. But there's no doubt with the Lions. They're highly confident going on the road to face Carolina.
And, people will say, well, the Lions caught a break last week having to face Zach Wilson instead of Mike White. This week it's Sam Darnold, so it's not like they're facing Cam Newton from the Super Bowl days.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, you got to feel good about that. I mean, if I'm in the Lions locker room, and I had this feeling when I played with Elway and certainly, Warren Moon, before the game, you're in that locker room, you look across the locker room, you see number 7 there, and like, oh, we're going to win this game, right? You look at Warren Moon, we're winning this game. And so because those guys give you a chance and they give you that confidence. I think in the Carolina Panthers locker room, they didn't have that all year long. They didn't have that common goal up until they got themselves into a situation. So it's hard to explain what happened to them last week. Now, I know some people feel like they're going to bounce back, but the way the Lions have been playing and then looking at golf, it's like, we're going to win this game, and that level of confidence before you even kick the ball off is everything.
All right, so these teams are all stacked up. Commanders, Giants are ahead of the Lions right now. So are the Seahawks, one of your former teams. Lions lost to Seattle, but it was a close game. They beat Washington and they beat the Giants. How do you kind of handicap this group? And Green Bay's got to be in that mix too. They're only a game behind. So who do you think comes out of this as those last 2 wild cards in the NFC after Dallas?
This gets interesting because you got after this game, you look at the schedule too, the Bears and the Packers left for the Lions, and a lot of things have to happen, obviously. But the important part, the Lions didn't play themselves out of the playoffs. So they're much involved. I'm looking at the landscape, Matt, of the entire NFC conference. And if you look at how it's made up right now, half the teams in the NFC have backup quarterbacks. And a lot of those teams we talked about that you just mentioned, I think Daniel Jones is playing at a backup quality, backup level, if you will, at quarterback, even though he's a starter and he has been all year. I think the Commanders are iffy about what direction they
Yeah.
want to go in with quarterback at this moment, too. So you look at the NFC South, and Tom Brady's not the same, and the entire division is up for grabs still, almost approaching the month of January. So, the Lions, you got to watch out for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers getting hot, but the Lions have them on the schedule. The Packers are in their way, and you got to watch out for Justin Fields too. But more importantly, I think taking care of your business each and every week, in particular this tough road game on the road against Carolina. I mean, that is one at a time, right? That whole mentality. But the opportunity is there. I mean, I think the Seattle Seahawks, even with Geno, there's some fallback there, right? There's some coming back to earth moments going on
Yeah.
with Seattle right now. So I think those last two spots could be up for grabs. A tough game for the Giants against the Vikings too, and the Vikings are still trying to play for something. I mean, I know the number one seed is in control with the Eagles, but there's a lot of jockeying for position still going on.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
This thing is wide open. What is
Yeah.
it in baseball? The Mets have spent $300 million, and
Right.
it's not a level playing field at all. If you're in Pittsburgh, you're like, what the heck do we even have a baseball team for? In the NFL, I mean, your old team, the Falcons, could win the NFC South, and they're
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, they are. All those teams are terrible, right? And including the Carolina Panthers, and that's why you don't want to overlook them, but certainly respect them. But yeah, I mean that entire division just stinks right now.
No question about it. Mike, thanks so much for coming on.
Matt, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
There he is, Mike Pritchard with us, NFL analyst, the lead NFL analyst for VSIN, VSIN, VSIN Network. Listen all the time on Sirius XM. Thanks for making us your first listen today. Tomorrow, Julian Council from Locked On Panthers joins us for the crossover.